Welcome, Rob Ainscoe here with Sim Horizons, and I am going to go over the advanced options in my Seasons product. As you can see here, Seasons is already running. I've loaded it. What we're going to do is we're going to click over here, and this thing says Advanced Options. It's fairly innocuous, but there are it reveals quite a bit of extra supported features that you can use to enhance your seasons. You can click really just about anywhere along here and it'll expand to a larger screen. Let's go ahead and move this into view here. Now, as you can see, we've got quite a few more options here. I'm going to go over what these options do and how you can customize your individual season month. Alright, so let's start off. First of all, these advanced options are specific to your currently selected season. So if you were to change to a different season up here, to say December, you'd see that all these parameters here change. You got your December tree colors. So it's important to understand that all this is tied to you changing a season set. So we'll go ahead and we'll go back to, say, October here. Now the next important thing is this thing called Standard Biome and Cities Biome. These are two different biomes that you can operate together or individually to represent your vegetation. So the Standard Biome is your regular biome that's going to cover most of the planet, and your Cities Biome is going to be slightly differently in a city area versus just a regular global standard area. I actually call them rural and cities. And as you notice, as I click on this and switch to the cities biome, all these parameters change. So the biomes here, there are 2 biomes per season set. So October will have a standard biome, October will have a cities biome. Now let's go ahead and we'll work with the standard biome here. And within a standard biome, you have biomes, obviously. And this is where you'll get a list. If you click on this drop down here, you'll get a list of all the available biomes. Now these are the biomes that I've created through my seasons generator. And they actually come from resolved data that I acquired online. And it's just not the same as the Microsoft data. It maps the ecoregions differently, and they're differently named biomes. Now, you can create a new biome, you can edit an existing biome, you can create another biome based on a different biome. There's all kinds of options you can do here with a biome. But I just want to give you a quick overview of how these biomes and species relate, and variations relate, and ecoregions relate. As you can see, there's kind of a group box around the biome, kind of representing this is a biome and everything within the biome is specific to that biome. As I change biomes, you'll see that all this information changes here, species and variants. Now, when we get into, so a biome has various species, and when we're at species here, we can have different types of species, deciduous, variants of deciduous. I select deciduous, this one here, and you notice that the colors changed, the trees changed, and the color preset filled out. So these values here represent a preset color. You're not bound to these. You can adjust these sliders and make the color however you want. As soon as you do that, the preset color is no longer active because you've changed the value, so it doesn't match up with one of the preset colors. But under species, you have these things called variations. And variations are, you can have as many as you want within a species. So these may be different sizes of deciduous, like say option 2 here, We have a height range from 14 to 19, and these are actually represented, I believe, in meters. Well, I'm not 100% sure on that, but it seems to be about right. So you have, as you change options within the species here, you can have a different height range of deciduous trees. So we've got 9 to 13 here. So the 9 meters to 13 meters would be the range for the option 1 variants. Now these are, again, all variants within one single species. So not all species will have a lot of variants. Like date tree, for example, there's only 2 variants of a date tree. We've got one here that's 17 to 27 feet, and we've got another one that's 14 to 22 feet. So what I'm trying to present here is the relationship between the species and the variants. So it kind of hierarchical. Biomes contain species, and species contain variations of that species. Now, once you've got that concept kind of squared away, this will hopefully be a bit more easier to understand how the relationship and how you can build your own seasons. So we do have ecoregions here. The ecoregions are not associated to a species, they're associated to the biome. So if we change a biome here, you'll see that the ecoregion here changes as well. And ecoregions are important. This is where I get a lot of my data on how to set up the appropriate species, or the biomes and species. So here we go, ecoregion. You can see we've got quite a list of ecoregions here. And some ecoregions will have more or less. If you go to desert scrub here, we can see we only have one. The more popular ones like the boreal forests, that will definitely have more ecoregions associated to it because it covers more area. So that's the relationship between biomes, species, variants, and ecoregions. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the details of the biome parameters here. We have instances. This is defining, if you click over here, just the density of the vegetation per hectare. So 50 vegetation instances would be less dense per hectare than a 1,000 vegetation instances, which is going to be more dense per hectare. And a hectare is about 10,000 square meters or 2.47 acres. If you're, like I said, if you're questioning what these values mean, I'll just go ahead and click on these little question things, and they'll pop up a call out to say exactly what they are. So we have scale factor here. It goes from value 0 to 1, and what this will do is you can use the slider here to move your values. You can also use the single increment here to move them by 1 if you want fine tuning. But what the scale factor does is, let's click on the call out. If a species has a size or height that's a range from say 10 to 20, and you have a scale factor of, let's just say, in this case we'll make it 0.5, or let's go ahead and what the example says is 0.6. So if you have a scale factor of 0.6, you're essentially going to multiply 0.6 times this 10 and 20 value, so you'll end up with an effective height range of 6 to 12 meters in the city or town area. So that's controlling that aspect of the city and the town. And since we're in the standard biome here, you want to factor in how much of control you want to change that to. For city biomes, you may want that to be 0, and have it controlled through the standard biome, depending on if the ecoregion you're working with is in that standard biome. They've got some buttons here called the plus, the edit button, and a trash can. Actually, this is a pen, so it's an edit button. Trash can, which is a delete button. And they also have this quick edit view of the species list. We'll do that after I go over these other buttons first. But let's just start with the basic add a biome button. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I get this screen here called add a biome. And what you can do is you can type in your own biome. I'm going to call this Rob biome. And you can base this biome. You can either say, okay, I'm going to have a new biome that's completely empty. I don't have any species in it. I don't have any variants in it. Nothing. This is what you do if you want to create a biome from scratch. So it's a lot of work, but it's certainly something I've allowed people to do. Alternatively, I've added the ability here to take a biome and use one of the existing biomes, let's just say artificial desert scrub, and base my new biome, Rob biome, on this artificial desert scrub. So I'm going to hit OK here. Oops. Yeah, there is one caveat here. I'm glad this came up. A biome name, Microsoft have a very specific naming convention. You can't use spaces, so it'd have to be like Rob biome or Rob _ biome or something like that. So make sure you want to keep this within the rules of Microsoft, and I'll check for those rules. Let's go ahead and hit OK here. And there we go. So now it's created a new biome called Rob biome. And as you can see here, it's populated this new biome with the same values from that desert biome. And if you don't like that name, you can click on the pen here. You can change the name to Rob Desert Biome or something like that. And hit OK. And you'll get a new name, Rob Desert Biome. Of course, you have the option to delete the biome you created. You can actually delete any biome. You can hit this, mangroves, you can delete that. Or we can go back to the Rob Desert Biome and we can just hit delete button. And we can say either yup, no, I don't want to, or you can click on it again and say, oh, yes, I do want to, and go ahead and delete the biome. And now the biome will be gone. It will no longer be in this list. Now, the quick edit view of species list, what this does is it'll show the species in a grid. And let's go ahead and click on that. If you want to make really quick changes to the colors or the spawn ratio, which is the frequency of the species within this particular biome, you can go to this grid and quickly edit the values. Suppose I want this to be 0.60 rather than 49. So I can say, okay, I want to change that one, or I can double click and I can go Control C and say, okay, I want to change that one and that one and that one by just copying and pasting. So it gives you a kind of a grid view of the colors and the species and their spawn ratio. You can also click on these funky little filter things up here, and what they will do is, if you're only interested, say, okay, I'm only interested in scrub. So I click on scrub, close it, and now I only see the scrub entries, and then I can modify those. So when you're done, you can hit the check mark and to save your changes, and they should be saved. The colors will be saved to all the deciduous entries here. So that's what this list species overview does. It's a kind of a quick way to modify all the species down here, at least the basic colors. So we have a spawn ratio value here. This is a slider to adjust the frequency of this particular species relative to the other species. If you click on the green here, you'll get a quick call out on what the spawn ratio is about. Like I said, higher values will increase the likelihood of the species being rendered, but again, it's relative to all the other species. So if they all have a high value, then they kind of cancel each other out. So you want to manage the highs and the lows to get the particular species you want to show up in the sim. Okay, the RGB here, that's fairly self-explanatory. That's the red, green, and blue values. Changing these values will change the colors and their intensity. And you can use a slider, or you can use smaller increments with the up and the down increments here. I've created a lot of preset colors, which as soon as you put your own custom color in, it will say no sample image. That basically means I didn't capture an image for whatever color you've currently selected. Because of the way these trees are done in Microsoft Flight Simulator, there is no real way to see color changes in real time. I'm hoping in the future that this can be done, and we can make color changes here and we'll see them how they actually show up in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I haven't made a request for that. I'm going to include the link to the Microsoft Developer Forum for that request, along with a few other items I've requested, and hope that Microsoft can allow us to do this all real time, so that way you don't really have to guess or do a lot of trial and error on what colors you like or don't like to get the kind of tree look you want and foliage look that you want. But for now, that's just kind of how it works. If you click on the color presets here, you'll see I've got a bunch of different presets, and you can say yellow 10. That's what I want, and it'll notice the values here will change automatically, and you'll see the yellow 10. This is my screenshot from within the simulator I took, and I associate this particular screenshot with this particular color. What I've also done here is I've added the ability to add your own color presets. You can add, edit, delete. But suppose you want to add your own color preset. You can give it a name and a value. I'm going to call this, I don't know. This is probably going to end up being like a white blue or something like that. A white blue. And I don't have an image sample. I could click browse here, and then I could browse for image samples. These are ones I've already got, and these are the ones I've associated with other images, but you can create your own file here, and as long as it's a JPEG or PNG, and then you can open that file, and it will associate that image with that particular color range. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't have an image for this specific color. But that's what you can do. You can create your own color presets, as many as you want, and then hit OK. So that's the color you'll get for white, blue, whatever color you want that to be. And you can edit your colors. Again, this is very similar to what we did with Biomes. You click on the edit here. You can change the name, edit the color, change the image, do whatever you want. And you can also delete your color. So hit delete here. It's going to say, do you want to delete the preset color white blue? I say yes, and voila, white blue is now gone from the list. The color presets, it's important. These presets are the same presets also that are used in my seasons generator. So when I go into tools here, these colors here are the same colors that are created over here. So it's important to know that. So if you want to create your own color presets, do that here, and then if you want to generate an entire set of seasons, you can use your own color presets over here by just selecting them and then picking a color that you want. I'm not gonna change that because that's the seasons generator. Say nope. So that's the color presets, and this probably the most important visual aspect of trees. Now, if you go over to materials here, you can click on this. These are the type of material that the render engine will use to render a tree. Now, it makes sense to say scrub and using vegetation scrub. These are, I believe, 17 hard-coded values that Microsoft use. There's currently no way to have your own material. I'm hoping that will happen in the future. And again, it's something I've requested on the Microsoft Developer Forum. So we'll just have to wait and see and hope Microsoft address this and allow us to come up with our own materials so we don't get the same type of tree look everywhere we go. Because scrubs have all kinds of different trees. There are over 391,000 tree types. Or sorry, I should say vegetation types. And currently only 14 of those are really being represented in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I'm hoping Microsoft will allow us to open up the door, come up with our own materials so we can have a lot more variant in the visual look of a tree and its basic structure. But if you change this, if you get a palm tree, you get a preview of what a palm tree looks like. This is just a real palm tree, not a Microsoft Flight Simulator palm tree. And olive trees and date trees. And all that kind of good stuff. What you do, though, be aware. So if you've got scrub here and you say date tree, all scrub is going to now render as a date tree. So you typically don't want to change this. You want to leave the association the same. But if you're creating a new species and you know the species is one of these, say for example it's a deciduous, then you can go ahead and create that species and then associate this particular material to that species. So yeah, there's like I said, you can create your own species as well. There's no, it's very similar to how you create a biome. You put in a new name. Call it Rob species, and I'm gonna say okay. It's gonna be based on a deciduous, and I'm going to say okay. So now it creates a new species here. So we have the colors. We've gone over the spawn ratio, the materials, and the color presets. So now let's dig into the variations. So here's our variations. We've got, let me see, for this deciduous small, we have 6 variations. Let's go over what each variation has. Option 1, these are not actually, these are names I use internally. Variations don't really have names in the Microsoft Flight Simulator files, but they do have parameters. So each variation is a variant of a particular species. So in this case, it's deciduous small. I can create as many variations of this particular species as I like. But like I said, we have 6 here that are defined, and all these parameters here are specific to this particular variation. Now, why do you want to do this? Well, you might want all kinds of different shapes and sizes of deciduous small trees. You might want some to be more prolific than others. You might want some to have to be thicker and less subject to wind, so you can change the stiffness. You might want to have some that are more bushy or less bushy, and that's what all these parameters here control. So let's start with option 1 here. We've got a height range of 5 to 8 meters. I can increase or decrease that. So I can say, okay, well, let me move this down to 1 to 8 meters, something like that, or 1 to 6 meters. So I'm reducing the size of this particular variation. And suppose I think, well, there's not many of these particular variants, so I'm going to reduce their frequency. And these variants tend to be less stiff, so they easily blow in the wind, like say a tumbleweed or something like that. So reduce their stiffness, or you completely remove it to 0, and then you can say, well, they're not very bushy, so let's just remove their frames a bit. Now you have to be careful with the frames here. Like I said in the help, it controls how voluminous a particular frame vegetation may look. But you have to be careful. Too high a value can cause weird rendering anomalies. You'll see kind of a clipped texture of kind of hanging out in the sky. So you want to be very careful here. And too low can also have odd things happening as well. So you work with the frames carefully. Try not to go too wild and extremes, otherwise you might get some strange looking vegetation. Spawn ratio, like I said, we've gone over that before. Stiffness is basically how the control, or how the vegetation responds to wind. Higher stiffness value indicates less motion when windy. Lower value means more motion when windy. And okay, what else there? Okay, so we got a mask color here. It does actually have an impact. It'll tend to produce slight variances in the particular vegetation color. Max distance squared. All right, if we click on the call out here, we can see this adjusts the spacing between variations to make them seem more bunched together, higher value, or more spread apart, lower value. So if we move this up towards 1, it's going to make the vegetation more bunched together. So it'll kind of squeeze them together. Or if you like the vegetation to be a bit more spread out, then you can lower the value. Relative offset Y. What this does is it controls the height of the vegetation either above or below the terrain or the surface that's associated with or positioned with. If you click on the call out here, negative values will be below surface, positive values will be above surface. As you can see from my settings here, I don't really allow any positive values because it doesn't make sense to me to have vegetation floating in the air. But what you can do here is you can also add a little bit of reduce the repetition in any particular vegetation as to how dug in they are to the ground or not. It just adds a little flavor or variance to the vegetation, and even it might reduce the height of the vegetation a little bit, just so you get that variance and remove some of the repetition you might see. Now, as I said before, all these can be set on per variant item, and keep in mind we're talking about one single species here. So we have a deciduous small species and 6 different variants of that species. As with all my other plus button is to, if you want to add an option, you can add a new option. These are the new options are given a automatic name. You can't name them yourself. That's just the way the file structures work in Microsoft. I couldn't allow that. But they can be based on other options within this particular species, so you can pick another option and add that variant, and it'll be based on the one you had selected, which is option 4. Now, if I don't like this option, I can delete it. Well, you know what? I don't like this option. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the delete button. Say, oh, okay, delete option, and then the option removed. You'll be back to 6. So that's the variants. The last item on the list here is ecoregions, and these are associated with biomes, so we're no longer working with species. You can add and remove ecoregions. They've also got a grid over here to show you a quick overview of the ecoregions. This might be preferable for some, so you can see what a list of ecoregions associated to this particular biome, which is artificial desert scrub, and you see that up here as well. So this is showing you basically the available ecoregions that have not been assigned, and the ones that you have assigned. So if you wanted to add additional ecoregions to this, you could by checking that. That would add this ecoregion to this particular biome. Typically, you do not want ecoregions being represented into two biomes. So that's why in this list here you see that there's only 4 available, because these are 4 biomes, 4 ecoregions that have not been assigned to any biome. And in this case we only had 1 Arizona mountains forest. So if we did want to add one, we can go over here, and this will give me a list of the available ecoregions I can add. As I add ecoregions, there may be a case where I've used up all my ecoregions, they've all been assigned to a biome, then you would not be able to add an ecoregion. But if I wanted to say rock and ice, added that to this, now I should have Arizona mountain forest and rock and ice. And if I go over to my list here, you'll see the 2 Arizona mountain forest and rock and ice selected already, and these 3 are available if I wanted to add them. And the delete is the same thing. You can delete, it'll tell you, do you want to delete the ecoregion rock and ice from this artificial desert scrub biome? I can say, okay, go ahead and do that. And there you go, Arizona mountain forest. Just down to 1 ecoregion now. So that's how you can associate ecoregions to a biome. The important restriction there, because like I said, you do not want to have identical ecoregions being associated with a biome. So that covers ecoregions, and that actually covers my advanced rules. When you click on the cities biomes, this is basically all the same here. It's just you're working with a cities biomes set, which will have its own set of biomes and species and variants and ecoregions. Cities biomes typically won't use as many ecoregions, but they can actually have an ecoregion in here that's also being used as an ecoregion here. So that's really it for everything I've done here for the advanced options. We can go ahead and close that up and bring this down. And the one caveat here, you can apply it to Microsoft Flight Simulator so long as you're at the main menu screen, but you cannot do this while you're in mid-flight. I wish you could, and I've got a request out to Microsoft to saying, hey, can you give me something that will allow me to make these seasonal changes real time, so as you fly you can see the changes straight away. There's no going back and forth and reloading. So there you have it. That's a quick overview of the advanced options. I hope that helped. If not, feel free to ask me, give me support inquiries through support@simhorizon.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.